Before this video, today we have another episode in the daily task lineups, and today we're going to be talking about Germany Rank 2. Of course, in the last episode of the series, we talked about the US at Rank 2, and obviously described how you can upgrade the lineup and everything like that. Obviously with the Chaffee going up to 3.7, same with the standard M4, and some of you guys seem to appreciate that series, and it was definitely something that I was planning for a while to talk about. And well, what better way than to bring up the Germans? This will be fun because I can already see the comments, but well, remember, this is meant to be as bare bones as possible for a new player. That's why the lineup looks a little bit unusual. So, before we get into it, obviously I'm going to describe the series very briefly for those that are new. So this is essentially meant to be as bare bones as possible for a new player, so new players can easily access these lineups a lot quicker than what they normally could, and will definitely help them out in terms of the overall capabilities and everything. So with Germany, they have a large array of vehicles, and God help me when I get to Russia, let's put it that way, but I'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So with Germany, they do have a few vehicles in this lineup that can be changed. So obviously I'll describe those as we go along. There are two vehicles that shouldn't be changed, which is the 251 and the Puma, but well, I'll obviously mention why once we get to it. Without further ado, let's get in and let's talk about the Puma first of all. So the Puma is definitely one that a lot of people enjoy. I do like to see myself. And I also enjoy blowing them up with HE rounds, but that's entirely different. This is definitely a vehicle that is very good in its own right. It has an excellent dose of mobility, with it being 56 miles per hour forwards and backwards. The engine, whilst it isn't the most powerful, it can definitely get this thing to and from locations very easily. The 50mm gun, whilst not being the strongest of cannons at this tier, is definitely one that you should respect and can comfortably deal with pretty much all targets. And let's just put it this way, this is one of the most meanest armoured cars around this BR. And it's also why I want more armoured cars, Gaijin. And I don't mean stuff at 11.0, which we don't need, or nations getting them that they don't need, because German players have been screaming for top tier light tanks and stuff like that. But that's getting a little bit off topic. But anyway. So like I said, with the mobility, the firepower, and well, it's an armoured car, so you're not expecting armour. The fact is, this vehicle is one of the best vehicles for the light tank tasks at the BR that, obviously, I'm trying to stick around for, rank 2 tasks. Obviously, I won't really suggest anything, because there's nothing to upgrade the Puma, unfortunately, which is also why we need more armoured cars and not light tanks slotted into a tank destroyer line, but we'll gloss over that. This is just a prime example of you really don't need to change this vehicle. There's nothing really bad about the Puma that I can really say, other than the high speed controllability, because it can be a bit of a faff. This thing will definitely get any task that you put in front of it that it can obviously do, other than obviously heavy tank tasks, which this lineup cannot do. But the fact is, this is definitely something where I can go, this is one of the best light tanks around this area, and will definitely do anything you put in front of it. Now we're moving on to a vehicle that you can definitely upgrade from this lineup. The Panza IV F2. As I mentioned at the start of this video, this is meant to be as simplistic for a new player as possible. And this is the first tank they get with the long 75mm. So the KWK for the L43 is a very solid gun at 3.3. Obviously, the Panzer IV F2's armour is not too good, with just being 50mm pretty much anywhere and then 30 on the sides. Obviously, the same as all Panzer IVs, but I'm more referring to the front armour here. This can be where the Panzer IV F2 falls short, but obviously, as you can see, I do have the additional track armour module, which does actually save your ass once in a while. This makes the Panzer IV F2 one of the most forgiving for new players, as it does have a very solid gun. It has good enough mobility to get it where it needs to go. Its armour can sometimes take a hit depending on what's facing it, but obviously that's not guaranteed. And with a high crew count of 5 and decent survivability, this is definitely something that you need to consider. Obviously, the one downside is the smoke grenade launcher is back here. So if you're trying to put some smoke in front of you, the only way you can really do that is if you smoke up and drive in reverse, or fire a smoke shell. either way, you can still get out of a tight spot if you need to, but it's not guaranteed like with the Puma, which has smoke grenades coming off the side of the turret. But this is why I said this lineup can be improved, because you can go straight to the Panzer IV-G if you wish. This just is a better Panzer IV F2. You can also up-tier the lineup to 3-7 with the Panzer IV-H and or J, although the J is a little less forgiving than the H, but still. And of course, for the tank destroyer, which we'll cover, you can eventually go up to the Dick and Max if you choose to go down that route. So it's entirely up to you. But the fact is, the medium lineup is just so consistent. The reason why I'm not putting a Panzer III-L or M or anything like that here is because I don't think they're good, but I would rather have an F2 if I'm limiting myself to one medium tank to obviously account for the SP costs. And this is just something that is preferred by me. I personally prefer Panzer IVs, but that can obviously be up to you. If you prefer Panzer III, you can put a Panzer III here instead. It's entirely up to you. Moving on to the tank destroyer. So obviously the Marder 3H is the one that you get easiest. Obviously the Marder the Marder 3 went down to rank 1. The Marder 3H is at rank 2. It is the first vehicle in the line that you get, but obviously, as I said, this thing is very, very good regardless. This has access to the infamous Pak 40, one of the most legendary anti-tank guns, and it definitely lives up to that. With it having 151mm of penetration at 10 meters, it could definitely pack a severe punch. With it having smoke shells as well to get out of a tight spot, HE rounds, APCR if you really need to pen something that badly, heat, it has it all really. The only thing it doesn't have is armor, but well, it's a tank destroyer that's lightly armored on a Panzer 38T chassis. You can't exactly expect a large amount of armor. But this gun is incredibly capable. It will pen pretty much anything you'll come across. And even in 4-3 games where this thing will be slightly up-tiered to the point where it's not actually going to meet those vehicles, it can still crack them like an egg. So you will have very little issue here. If you want to upgrade this vehicle to have a bit more survivability from aircraft, you can upgrade to the Stu-42G, which trades penetration for raw armor, and is obviously based on a Stug. You can also just go cheap and cheerful with the Stug 3F, which is essentially just a Stug 3A you'd have probably played, possibly, it just depends really. And this is essentially that with a longer gun. You can obviously, as I mentioned earlier, if you're going to go down the 3-7 route, you can upgrade to the Dick and Max, but the Dick and Max is much more vulnerable to planes than the Marder is. And like I said, it's just something you can really experiment with. Obviously, if I was to be personally honest, I would personally stick with the Stug 42G or the F. It's entirely up to you. With the Stu-42, you do have to worry about the low penetration of the stock round, but once you get the HIC round, you'll be pretty much cracking everything like an egg. So you really don't need to worry. And the nice thing about German vehicles is they have so much camouflage, you can actually play these vehicles for quite a bit and just learn so much about them. So that's one thing I would definitely recommend. Now we move on to the SPAA of the lineup, and this is another one where you do not need to change it. This is the 25121. This was relatively decent when it came out, and it's still pretty strong. Its reload rate is a little bit long, but that's why the ammunition count is so high for its guns. And to be honest, this thing can pretty much do everything that you need it to. Now, there's only one problem with the 25121, and that's the gun elevation. This only has access to 49 degrees of gun elevation, which is really limiting. This means that if a plane is attacking you directly from above, you can't do anything, and that is just one of the many flaws of this thing. But the fact is, it's the only rank 2 SPAA that they actually get. It's one of the actual better SPAAs, minus that drawback, and it can actually do some tank busting, and it can definitely do that relatively well. With 51mm of penetration on the AP for the HVAP round, obviously it's a 1 in 4, so don't expect it to be doing HVAP all the time. The fact is, this can definitely do a lot, and like I said, the fact that most of the belt can still do about 30mm of penetration, you'll get through this with no problem. Like I said, I've not even finished the camouflage on this thing, because Germany just has so much camouflage. Yeah, I'm going to be here for a while with German vehicles, but oh well. Now we move on to another vehicle that you can upgrade, the J-Red 7D3. I chose this because, well, big bomb, because it's easy enough. It's also one of the D series Stukas, so it has a bit more armor than your typical Stuka, and it also has the improved tail gunner, which has the twin MG81 7.92. And also, this vehicle has access to custom loadouts, so you can definitely have a play with that and suit the Stuka to how you need it, depending on the BR and obviously the matches that you get into. Now, obviously, putting a 2.0 Stuka at that sort of BR can be seeming a bit daunting, but that's why we have this bad boy, the J-Red 7D5. Perfect for slapping bombers out of the sky, perfect for pretty much doing anything you want, really, and pretty much having access to very, very similar bomb loads of the D3. Now, the only catch is this does not get access to a 1,000 kilogram bomb. But the fact is, you can make wacky loadouts like this with a single gun pod, an incendiary bomb, and another incendiary bomb, or you can just do anything you want, really. You can even bring machine gun pods if you want to. But this plane just has so much going for it. And like I said, instead of 7.92s in the nose, it has, well, not the nose, the wings. It actually has 20mm guns in the in the wings. I don't know why I keep saying nose. It's because I'm so used to German planes having guns in the nose, but you get my point. This has two 151s with 500 rounds each in the wings, and you can bring gun pods if you really want. What more can I say? That is a very worthy upgrade to the D3. That's not to say the D3 won't do the job, but personally, you're going to want to upgrade to the D5 if you want. But like I said, this is meant to be as bare bones as possible for a new player to get access to. So that's why the Stuka is here, not the D5. Finally, we come to the fighter. This is one that you don't necessarily have to upgrade, but I personally would. This is the BF-109F1. Obviously, you can put in an E-series if you're not quite there yet, so the E1, E3, etc. You can put these here if you want. I just chose the F1 because it's a bit more powerful in its performance. But that's not the reason why I'm bringing up the F1. The F1 itself is one of the few planes that actually taught me really about piloting the 109 series. Same with the E's. And it's definitely a plane that should have a lot of respect for people. And obviously, you should have respect for it. Obviously, having access to a 250 kilogram bomb is always nice and all that. But this is where I think the potential upgrade could come into conclusion. Now, this is where I'm going to have to put it in the lineup to really explain my thought process. But what it is, I love how buggy this can be sometimes, by the way. There it is. So, this is the lineup, or the change that I would personally suggest. This is the BF-109F2. Now, it does lose a bit of its fighter potential as the cannon is changed to the 15mm MG151. This can be a downgrade and can definitely hurt your anti-cast potential. However, what this plane takes away, it more than gives back. You still keep the 250 kilogram bomb, which is always nice, but this is where the armored targets belt comes into play. 51mm at 10 meters, obviously you're not going to get that, you're going to get more like 30. But this has basically the penetration of around a 50 cal. And with it obviously hitting as hard as it does with the HEF rounds against planes, you'll be able to penetrate light armor, take out some medium tanks from above, and you have a 250 kilogram bomb, which is always nice. Now, of course, if you want to stay as more of an anti-cast sort of plane, which can also bomb a target, the F1 will do fine. But personally, if I was putting together a lineup, this is the plane I would pick. But obviously, this is meant to be as simple as possible for a new player, so the F1 sits here for now. But like I said, that's the luxury of having these lineups, is that you can modify them to how you want. You can obviously make changes how you want. And that's why this series is so focused on that, because it's so simple to do for a new player. They can do it, or maybe they want to learn the vehicles that I've suggested here. It's entirely up to them. Without further ado, that's it for Germany for today. Obviously, we'll move on to Russia next, which is one of the two nations that actually gets access to a heavy tank. Well, three actually. There's three, because France has one as well. But I don't know if I'm going to go down the 2.3 France lineup just yet, but we'll cross that bridge. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions for what you would make changes in terms of the vehicles, please do let me know in the comments below. I think I've pretty much covered all of them, but if you have any suggestions that you might want, let me know. And like I said, this is meant to be focused on newer players, so if you are an experienced player, maybe share your thoughts. See what the new players can maybe learn from you. Without further ado, we'll leave you all to it for today. Hope to see you all on the next one.